Welcome to Business Reporter's Digital Economy Campaign. I'm Rachel Hicks. 60% of North American enterprises already rely on the public cloud, 5 times as many as 5 years ago. And the trend is unlikely to change anytime soon. The global cloud computing market is expected to exceed £150 billion in 2019. With businesses moving their software infrastructure, data, analytics, and increasingly even business-critical functions to the cloud, the reliability of network connectivity is becoming even more important. No company can afford to be unaware of any network outages, sluggish apps, or failing devices when customer and employee experiences are at stake. But how do we gain full visibility, for example, of something as large as the internet when it's made up of more than 60,000 individual networks? And how can businesses ensure they become aware of network failures proactively before their customers or employees do? Well, this is what we're going to discuss today with Mohit Ladd, CEO and co-founder of ThousandEyes. Good morning, Mohit.
Morning.
What I'd like to start with is asking you the kind of trends that your customers are seeing at the moment.
The biggest trend we see is a digital first mindset. So think about, used to go to the bank to deposit a check or so on, and instead now you take a picture of your check, you just upload it to the phone app. And so there's the whole notion of everything is digital first. The other major trend we see is that of cloud first, where organizations are really making that journey to public cloud, whether they're a large enterprise or a small enterprise. And this notion of developing on an environment that's built to be agile is another big trend. And really the biggest threat I see for large enterprises here is this notion of not being cloud first from the get-go and having to make that transformation.
So in that case, tell us where ThousandEyes fits into this. What do you do?
Sure. So we started the company because we realized there was a huge gap. The internet was a black box and everything was going to be internet-centric. Like we really believed and understood that the internet was becoming central to user experience, to how people live their lives, whether you're an enterprise that's going to cloud, you're an organization that's serving over the internet, or you're a consumer starting to turn on these thermostats and webcams and Internet of Things concept. And it was difficult for us to visualize a world where you rely on this, but you can't see it. And so we started ThousandEyes with the notion of we want to make the internet look like it's your environment, that you can see through it. I mean, imagine going from point A to point B in London without having any access to Google Maps or to routing and so on. And that's what we wanted to fill in. So that's why we started the company. And what we really do is we enable you to look at the internet like it's your network and really feel like you're in control. You don't have to essentially assume that it's an unknown environment anymore. It's going to be very much something you can understand.
Okay, but what are the shortcomings of current network and device monitoring systems?
Right. So current network and device monitoring systems assume that you own the devices that you want to monitor, right? So think about it this way. If you stand at this building, at the entrance of this building, the current network monitoring solution is looking at who's coming in and out of this building, right? But what they're not telling you is whether there's a traffic jam at the entrance of the Canary Wharf station. And so what you really need to understand is for your journey from here to your home or to dinner, what are the different dependencies and what parts of that journey are actually going to cause you delays. And that's what is missing in the current set of network monitoring, because it basically tells you what's going in and out of your pipes. And what you need to see, similar to Google Maps, is the entire journey and understand every single dependency and whether it's performing the way it is performing, or do you have to actually take a different route?
Yes, because nobody wants to be late for their dinner.
Nobody wants to be late.
So how can new monitoring methods provide better visibility?
It starts with this notion of you have to think about what problems you solve and then build techniques around it, right? And the problem that needs to be solved today is to really decode this complex environment. And that means that you cannot use techniques that assume full instrumentation of your environment. So you have to rely more on smart data collection. You have to rely more on smart inferences and sort of putting two and two together. But more importantly, one of the fundamental differences, this is a technique that relies on shared intelligence, is really important. Google Maps or Waze, they don't work if just your family collects data, right? It's a collective shared data set. And because the internet is a shared environment, and that's really the fabric that connects you to your customers, that notion of shared intelligence and the community benefiting from each other's intelligence is really key when you think about a solution in today's environment.
So how do you see the landscape changing over the next 5 years or so?
So you're operating in a digital-first world or a cloud-first world, and I think the notion of making the network your competitive edge is really key. That's a key shift we see, and we see organizations that do that and really deliver a much more forward-looking user experience and journey for customers. And organizations which assume that the internet is like power, it will just work in most cases, they don't succeed. And the organizations that do take control of the environments are much more successful. So what we see going forward is this notion of taking control of connectivity and networks and making networks a core competency and a competitive edge. I think that's really important. The other realization people have to have is that you're operating in shared environments. It's like those streets that there's many people that are going to walk through those streets. So relying on intelligence that is collected by the community, and this notion of collective intelligence is key to getting the most out of these shared environments and being able to make the right sort of business decisions on what you rely on and what you don't and how you change things. And then finally, you're operating in a very different model today than before by going to cloud, by using content delivery networks and so on. You're relying on a lot of third parties, and the mindset that organizations need to have is a collaboration first, a collaborative operating model of sorts, where everything they do from the technology to the operations to the business processes are built around this notion of having better collaboration with your vendors and your dependencies and making that part of your core competency.
So taking that point, what other key considerations would you want people to take away from today?
So I would say the most important consideration that I would say is to really understand where your users are, what you're trying to achieve as a digital first objective, and then understand everything beyond the user experience, understand what is driving that user experience, and be able to leverage collective data sets. So this is one of the key things to succeeding in a digital first environment, is really the power of community data and intelligence. That's really key, and being able to set up operations where you can collaborate with each other much more than ever before.
Norit Lad from ThousandEyes, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.